Hi everyone, welcome back and thank you for joining me this week. This week I'm excited to announce this much awaited video of the Young Nails airbrush. So this is it. It's a handheld air compressor. It's pretty quiet. That's on high speed, that's on low speed, so you're not dealing with a big loud air compressor at your desk. It is rechargeable, which is awesome. And this video, I'm going to walk you through how I actually clean it because I do find that is super, super important to being successful with it. And then being able to take it apart and put it back together and adjusting it properly will really help with your success with this as well. So going through that and then just playing around with it a little bit, kind of doing a bit of a fun look with the airbrush itself. So I hope that you enjoy this video, and as always, if you have any questions or comments, just throw those in the section below. So here is the airbrush in all its glory. It is cordless and rechargeable. This top nozzle piece, when you first get it, is not attached. It screws on. It's really hard to unscrew once it's in there. So long story short, this piece screws onto this piece and then it's ready to go. It is rechargeable and you cannot use it if it is being plugged into charge. So you want to make sure that you have this thing charged before you're ready to use it on a client. And it does have 2 speeds. This button here is first high speed, then low speed, and then it turns it off. And then this top part is where you put the paint in. And you don't need a whole lot, just a few drops of paint right into that top piece. And then you turn it on. And you pull back the trigger on top, press it down, and you are airbrushing. So that's how it works, and I wanted to show you before anything how I clean it. So I have been using the LE Pro remover. This is basically pure acetone. And you could just use pure acetone as well. I've also heard that Windex works well, but I've been finding this works really well. So the kit comes with this little pipette in it. So I've just been taking a bit of the acetone in the pipette, putting it right into that place where I originally put the paint into, and then I'm actually turning the machine on and running the acetone through the machine. I'm finding this is working really well to keep things running smoothly. And it helps to really get that paint residue out of the nozzle itself. There is also this little cleaner that I purchased on Amazon. It's $20, and you put the nozzle right into the jar, and then you do the same thing. So putting the acetone in there and then turn it on and spray it into the jar. It keeps the fumes down this way, and I'm just using a face cloth or like an old face cloth to spray my paint onto, but you are just that way spraying it right into the jar. You don't have to worry about any of the fumes or anything because there is a little filter just under this cap here. And it did come with a few replacement filters as well, and that keeps the fumes down. And then yeah, it's just a little glass jar, and you can see top comes off, and then you can clean that inside with just some warm soap and water. These are a water-based alcohol paint. So now I'm going to take it apart. So this back piece comes right off. You want to be careful with these pieces, of course, and this little nut loosens, and you just want to loosen it. You don't need to take it all the way off, and then this needle slides out. And you can see the paint residue that's on there, and all I do is just wet a nail wipe with the acetone, and then give the needle a good wipe down. So just really getting all that paint residue off of the needle. And then the next thing is these 2 little nuts on the top come off, and then giving this little point here a nice little wipe down too. And of course you can clean off the entire machine with the acetone, works really well. You can get inside of that paint holder. And then when I have this all apart, I like to just put a bit of acetone in there and let it sit while I'm cleaning the other parts off. So these two little pieces come apart as well. This piece I find gets quite clogged with paint, so I always just clean off that little nipple thing on the top there. And then this piece, there is paint that builds up on the outside, but it doesn't seem to affect the performance at all, so I've just kind of been leaving it, but you can definitely clean that as well if you like. So now with the acetone still in there, you just carefully thread the needle back through. You definitely want to be careful with this. You can bend your needle this by putting it back in here. But leaving the acetone in there, it pushes a little bit of acetone all the way out, and then your needle will poke out of the end of there just a little bit. Screw on the nibs on the front there, and then don't forget to just gently tighten, just finger tight, this little nut on the back, so you can see when you pull the trigger back, it's moving that needle back. And then this black piece comes on the back and screws on there. Now this little nut at the back is a little bit tricky, so it needs to be the perfect amount of tightness. So I'm going to try and show you as best I can here. I'm just going to dump the rest of this acetone out. So when the trigger is pulled back, you just want to tighten this nut just enough so that it just barely pushes the trigger up. It's really hard to see here, and I tried to get you to see that little fine movement, but you'll feel it when you're holding that trigger back and you tighten it. You'll feel it just barely get tension on it. So you don't want it to be so tight that the trigger is actually up and off of the thing. You just want it just that little tiny bit of tension so that the trigger barely pushes against your finger. And then it's hard to see in this video, but you will be able to see that needle move back and forth when you pull the trigger. And I do find sometimes that nut at the back needs a little bit of adjusting when you are working. Just the vibration of the machine tends to make it move a little bit. So if you're having problems and your paint isn't spraying, first thing I would do is check to see if when you move the trigger back, the needle is moving. If it's not, you need to tighten that nut just a little bit. Oh, and I almost forgot, I should also mention the cleaning kit that I purchased on Amazon comes with a few little tools as well. So when you have everything apart, you can use these little metal rods to push in and out, like where the needle goes into, so you can really get, if you're finding there's a lot of paint built up in there, you can really clean that out. And same with these little brushes as well. You can use them to kind of scrub the inside of things and really get that paint residue out. And then there's also this little tool, so it's a little needle point. And when the needle is out of the machine, you can push it into the front part here. So if you take this nut off and see where the needle point pokes out, you can poke this needle in. And if there's any paint that is stuck in there, it will make a little hole, and then you'll be able to push it out with the needle, or with, if you put the acetone in there and then thread the needle through. I've been finding that's working well. All right, so anytime I were to do this on a client, I know it's a little bit ridiculous on this hand, but I would use the nail art barrier from Uber Chic. So this is latex based, but it goes all the way around the cuticle and it ends up drying, and then you can just peel it off. So it makes cleanup of the airbrush work really simple and easy. I would also use this if I was doing gel stamping on a client, and then I don't have to worry about trying to clean that up before they cure. It'll still peel off nicely after that gel is cured on there. Now you don't have to put down a base color for the airbrushing. You can just airbrush it right onto a finished nail, like right before you're ready for your top coat. But just for the purpose of this video and so you can see it a little bit better on video and it does make the colors more vibrant, I am using white underneath. So just applying a thin even coat to all the nails with the just white buttercream. And then I am giving that a full cure. Okay, so just sliding a face cloth underneath of here to prevent paint getting everywhere. And I am loaded with my airbrush and just doing an ombre on this first one. So kind of spraying onto the towel first will give you a little bit of an indicator of how much paint is going to come out, and then you can slowly work your way up the nail and get that nice perfect ombre. Now for this second one, I put pink into the gun without cleaning out the purple because I'm going to do a purple to pink ombre. So I don't mind if my starting color is a little bit on the pinker side. It's also an easy way to sort of mix colors without actually having to mix anything. You can kind of just put different colors right into the gun and do it that way. So then I did just clean the purple out and I've got my pink going now. And just spraying from the top down. And then I am going to come in again with a little bit of purple just at the bottom. I just don't like how light it is, so just touching that up a little bit here. And you can always do a full color with the airbrush as well. So for this one, I have mostly silver with just a little bit of purple in my gun. And then I wanted to quickly show you too, if you do put down a base color, if you're doing something and it's not turning out the way that you like it, you can just take Afterwipe and this paint just wipes right off. So it is kind of nice to lay down a base color just so that if you do make a mistake, it's really, really easy to remove. And then another fun thing that you can do is take different types of material. I'm using a rubber glove for this, and while the paint is still wet, you can kind of dab it on and get some really cool textures. This one, looking at the video now, I should have just left like this because this blue looks really cool, but I did end up dabbling with it more, and by the end of the video, I don't like it quite as much as I do here, but just showing you that is another thing that you can do is kind of create some neat textures while the paint is still wet. And then you can also use different materials to create different patterns on the nail and then airbrush over top of them. So for this one, I'm just creating some lines with some striping tape, just making sure that that tape is really stuck down on there. And then I'll airbrush over the whole thing. And once the top layer is dry, then you can peel those tape lines off and reveal your pattern. You can do this with a ton of different things. I've seen it done with mesh. You can create kind of a snakeskin look. I saw someone using a fake leaf to do like a leaf print on the nail. So anything that's a little bit like mesh or see-through, you can totally hold on the nail and then airbrush over it and get really cool effects that way also. So there's tons of room for creativity and lots of creative possibilities with this. And then when you're done everything, peeling off that nail art barrier, Again, if I was doing this on a client, I would take a little bit more time and care, but it was a little bit weird to put it on the silicone hand. But it does just peel off super nice, and then you don't have to worry about getting paint all over your client's skin. Although I will admit it does really wipe off easily, either with after wipe or if you use acetone. Either one works really well. And then I'm just finishing this look off with the Young Nails stain resistant top coat, but I have been able to get success with Super Shiny and First and Last as well. So you can kind of play around with different top coats, but just really making sure that you're getting all the way to the edges. You'll see when I wipe this one, I was a little bit quick and sloppy and didn't quite get all the way to the edges. So if you don't, the paint will rub off. It's the same kind of thing as with chrome. You need to make sure you're capping your edges and getting all the way to the very sides of the nails so that everything is encased and nothing's gonna wipe off at all. And a stupid hair got stuck in my ombre nail, so it was a perfect ombre, but I tried to get the hair out and I smudged the paint a little bit, but that's okay. My frustrations are behind me at this point. So as always, thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. And don't forget that you can also support us by liking us on Facebook and following us on Instagram.